Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you will shift the way you see your life forever. There are mysteries in this world that the masses will never comprehend. Truths reserved for those whom God has handpicked. Throughout history, He has marked His chosen, not with earthly symbols, but with a divine seal, an unseen force that sets them apart. This mark cannot be bought, borrowed, or imitated. It is undeniable to those who carry it. Many believe that being chosen means a life of ease, riches, comfort, status. But true chosen ones know better. Their worth is not measured in gold, but in the fire they withstand, in the purpose that burns within them. And here's the question you must answer today. Do you bear this mark? Not everyone who speaks His name is truly set apart. Faith without evidence is empty. The Bible reveals 7 marks that separate the chosen from the deceived. By the end of this message, you will know exactly where you stand. This is not just another video. This is a divine appointment. If you are here, it's for a reason. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not just information. It's revelation. Before we begin, if you want to grow in spiritual wisdom and receive more revelations like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. This journey is just beginning, and what you are about to discover may change the way you see everything. 2. A transformed heart, the first mark of the chosen. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another message. It's a divine call to transformation. A heart that has not been changed is a heart that still belongs to the world. But when God places His hands upon you, when His Spirit moves through you, everything shifts. This is the first undeniable mark of the chosen. A heart that is no longer its own. I want you to pause for a moment and declare this over your life. God is transforming me. I will walk in His power. I will rise above every obstacle. Speak it, write it, proclaim it, because when you declare truth, you align yourself with it. A transformed heart isn't a minor adjustment. It's not about tweaking behaviors, modifying routines, or appearing more righteous in front of others. It's a radical, undeniable, and irreversible shift from the inside out. It's the moment when God takes the heart of stone, the heart hardened by fear, pride, and selfish ambition, and replaces it with a heart of flesh, alive with purpose, burning with divine fire. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Ezekiel 36 verse 26. This is not poetry. This is a decree from heaven, and when God decrees a thing, it is established. Look at Paul, once a persecutor, then transformed by fire. Consider Saul, a man of power, a man of influence, a man convinced he was right, until he encountered the living God. On the road to Damascus, light pierced through his blindness, and in an instant, his heart was transformed. Saul the persecutor became Paul the apostle, a warrior for truth, a man whose life was no longer his own. This is what happens to the chosen. They do not remain the same. They are unrecognizable from who they once were. When God transforms a heart, it alters everything. How you love, how you speak, how you think, how you handle wealth, how you walk in your purpose. What once held value no longer satisfies. What once defined you no longer fits. Money, status, comfort, these things lose their grip. The transformed heart understands that riches are fleeting, but the treasures of heaven are eternal. The emptiness of the world versus the fullness of God. Have you ever wondered why some people, despite having everything, money, power, influence, are still empty? They chase wealth, thinking it will secure them, yet inside, they are restless. They build empires, yet inside, they are broken. Because riches without God leave a void that cannot be filled. But when your heart belongs to Him, even if the world sees you as having little, you are richer than kings. Because true wealth is not measured in what you own, but in who owns you. The chosen carry a different spirit. When God changes a person's heart, their desires change as well. They no longer live for themselves, but for the one who called them. They are no longer driven by greed, but by purpose. They do not seek to glorify themselves, but to glorify the King of Kings. This is what separates the chosen from the deceived. Identity is not found in wealth. It is not found in status. It is found in the fact that you are a child of the Most High, bought with the blood of Jesus. And because of that, you do not belong to yourself, you belong to Him. But here's something you must understand. Not everyone who claims to follow God has truly experienced this transformation. There are those who speak His name but chase after the same things the world does. They wear the label of faith, yet their hearts remain unchanged. They still prioritize wealth over devotion, comfort over calling, self over surrender. But the chosen, the truly chosen, see beyond the deception of temporary pleasures and set their eyes on what is eternal. The question you cannot ignore. So I ask you today, has your heart been transformed? Have you truly surrendered to God in a way that changes everything about you? Or are you still clinging to old patterns, old desires, the empty promises of a world that cannot fulfill you? Because make no mistake, the first mark of the chosen is a heart that has been broken, reshaped, and renewed by the power of God. And when that happens, nothing remains the same. This is not about slight improvements. This is about complete transformation. This is about stepping into your true identity. This is about walking in your divine calling. This is about leaving behind who you were and stepping into who you were created to be. Now is the moment of decision. Do not just listen to these words. Respond to them. If this message is speaking to your spirit, then you know this is not an accident. God is calling you to transformation. Right now, I want you to make a declaration over your life. I will not stay the same. I am chosen. I am transformed. I am walking in the fullness of God's plan for me. Write it, speak it, believe it, because when you align yourself with truth, transformation begins. This is just the beginning. What comes next will take you even deeper. If you are ready to step fully into your identity as the chosen, stay with me, because the revelation is just beginning. An unwavering love for the truth, the second mark of the chosen. The line is drawn. The distinction is clear. There are those who claim to follow God, and then there are those who are truly marked by Him. The difference, their love for the truth. The chosen ones do not just acknowledge the truth. They embrace it, pursue it, and live by it, even when it costs them everything. They are not swayed by comfort, nor do they compromise when truth confronts their desires. But the imposters, those who wear the name of God like a badge but refuse to carry His cross, they turn away the moment truth demands a sacrifice. The truth separates the called from the chosen. We live in a world that preaches a watered-down gospel, where people twist scripture to justify their desires, where compromise is disguised as love, and convenience is mistaken for faith. But the chosen ones know better. They understand that truth is not just an idea, it is a person. Jesus declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." John 14 verse 6. To reject the truth is to reject Him. And many have already made their choice. They want God, but on their terms. They seek salvation, but refuse surrender. They desire heaven, but cling to the world. They are the young ruler who approached Jesus, convinced He was righteous, until truth demanded something from him. "Sell everything you have and follow me." And in that moment, he made his decision. He walked away, not because he didn't believe, but because he loved his wealth more than he loved the truth. This is where many stand today. They want God, but not at the cost of their comfort. They will say they believe, but refuse to let truth transform them. The chosen are different. When the truth confronts them, they do not shrink back. When God asks them to release something, they obey. They know that wealth is not evil, but when it replaces God, it becomes a chain. Power is not sinful, but when it corrupts the heart, it leads to destruction. The chosen refuse to be bound by anything that competes with their devotion to Christ. Truth versus deception, the war of this generation. The Bible warns that a time would come when people would reject sound doctrine, surrounding themselves with teachers who tell them what they want to hear. 2 Timothy 4 verse 3. That time is now. Look around. We live in an era where motivational speeches replace biblical truth, where prosperity is preached over purity, and where success is measured by worldly standards instead of spiritual obedience. The world shouts that love means accepting everything, but the love of God corrects, refines, and transforms. The world says, live your truth, but there is only one truth and it is not up for debate. And here's the hard reality, not everyone wants the truth. Many would rather remain deceived than face the discomfort of transformation. They would rather live in the illusion of security than confront the fact that they are serving two masters. But Jesus made it clear. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Matthew 6 verse 24. So which one is it? Will you bend to the truth, or will you try to bend the truth to fit your life? The true measure of the chosen. Does this mean God is against wealth? No. Abraham was wealthy. Job was restored to greater prosperity. Solomon was given riches beyond measure. But here's the difference, they did not serve their wealth. They served God. They understood that riches are a tool, not a God. Luxury is temporary, but truth is eternal. The chosen ones do not measure their success by their bank accounts, by the approval of men, or by temporary pleasures. They do not ask, how much can I gain? But rather, how much can I surrender? Because they know that truth demands everything. And here's what you must understand, truth will test you. It will break you. It will strip away every illusion, every false security, every excuse. But in that refining, it will set you free. The hardest question you'll ever answer. Do you love the truth enough to let it change you? Or do you only embrace it when it aligns with what you already want? Have you ever felt resistance rise within you when God's truth demanded something difficult? Have you ever justified compromise because obedience felt too costly? If so, know this, you are standing at a crossroads. The chosen ones, they do not conform. They do not waver. They do not exchange eternal riches for temporary comfort. The time for half commitment is over. There is a war for truth in this generation. The battle lines are drawn. And soon, the difference between the chosen and the deceived will be unmistakable. Where will you stand? This is your moment. Make no mistake, if you have heard this message, it is not by accident. You were meant to hear it. God is calling you to a higher standard, a deeper commitment, a life fully surrendered to Him. So I ask you again, are you chosen? Because if you are, then let this be the moment you step fully into it. Do not hesitate. Do not shrink back. Embrace the truth and let it transform you. Perseverance through trials, the mark of the chosen. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will redefine how you see your struggles. If you have been walking through fire, facing opposition, or enduring relentless trials, hear this, you are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. Many believe that being called by God means a life of ease, where doors swing open effortlessly, blessings pour down without resistance, and success comes without struggle. But this is not the path of the chosen. The chosen ones do not live sheltered lives, they walk through storms, they endure the fire, they face opposition that would break the ordinary. But they are not ordinary. You are not ordinary. Jesus Himself warned. In this world, you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world, John 16 verse 33. He did not say you might have trouble. He said you will. This is not a sign of rejection, it is a mark of distinction. The fire does not consume the chosen, it refines them. The battle does not break them, it prepares them. The struggle does not disqualify them, it sets them apart. Trials reveal who you are. Look at Job. A man of integrity, a man of wealth, a man favored by God, until one day everything was stripped from him. His riches, his family, his health, his reputation, gone. And yet, when everything else was taken, his faith remained. That is what made him chosen. Not his wealth, not his success, not his status, but his unwavering trust in God when everything around him was falling apart. And because of that, God restored him. Not just to what he had before, but to something greater. Job's story is your story. The enemy does not attack those who have no destiny. The fire does not come for those who are empty. The weight of trials does not rest on those who are insignificant. If you are facing relentless struggles, if doors are slamming shut, if people are turning against you, if everything seems to be pressing down on you, it is not because you were forgotten. It is because you were marked. You are set apart. You are a threat to darkness. You are dangerous to the plans of the enemy. And that is why the storm has come. The difference between the chosen and the convenient. Some follow God only when life is good. They praise Him when the bank account is full, when relationships are flourishing, when everything feels secure. But the moment trials come, they waver. They question. They turn away. But the chosen remain. Not because their circumstances are easy, but because their faith is real. When the fire rages, the chosen stand. When betrayal comes, the chosen trust. When everything falls apart, the chosen endure. Because they know what others do not, trials are not punishment, they are preparation. The Bible declares, Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. James 1 verse 12. This is the reward of those who refuse to quit, those who endure, those who hold on when everything says let go, those who do not bend, do not bow, do not break, because they know their suffering is not in vain. Daniel stood when others fell. Look at Daniel, taken from his home, forced to live in a foreign land surrounded by a culture that mocked his faith, threatened with death for refusing to bow to an idol, thrown into a lion's den for praying to his God. And yet he did not waver. He stood when others compromised. He remained faithful when others folded. And because of that, God didn't just rescue him, he elevated him. The same God who delivered Daniel is the same God who is with you now. The fire is not the end, it's the beginning. You must understand this. Trials are not evidence that God has left you. They are evidence that he is with you. Because the fire does not burn the chosen, it refines them. The storm does not drown the chosen, it strengthens them. The battle does not destroy the chosen, it positions them for victory. The world teaches that success is measured by comfort, by wealth, by luxury. But the chosen ones know that true success is measured in faith refined by fire. They do not chase after fleeting prosperity. They do not seek the approval of the world. They do not bow to temporary struggles, because they know that what is coming is greater than what they have lost. And so, they endure. The truth you must embrace. If you are facing battles right now, it is not because you are forgotten, it is because you are chosen. The enemy does not attack those who are no threat. He does not waste time on those who are powerless. If you feel surrounded, it is because he sees what you carry. If you feel pressed on every side, it is because he fears what you will become. So the question is not, will the trials come? The question is, will you endure? Will you stand when others fall? Will you trust when everything is shaking? Will you hold on when it would be easier to let go? Declare this now. If you know you are chosen, if you refuse to quit, if you will stand no matter what comes, declare it now. Say, I am chosen. I will not break. I will stand through the storm. My trials will not destroy me, they will prepare me. This is your moment of decision. Do not shrink back. Do not let the fire intimidate you. Rise. Endure. Walk as one who is chosen. Because your trials are not the end of your story. They are the proof that your story is just beginning. A desire for holiness, the mark that separates the chosen from the world. There is a war between two ways of life. The world calls you one way toward indulgence, compromise, and comfort. But God calls you to something higher, something greater, something set apart. This is the mark of the chosen. They do not blend in. They do not conform. They do not bow to the desires of the flesh. While the world pursues pleasure, power, and possessions, the chosen pursue holiness, righteousness, and obedience. The difference between them is not subtle, it is stark. It is the difference between darkness and light, between bondage and freedom, between temporary gain and eternal glory. The line between the called and the chosen. Many claim to follow God, but few truly live set apart. They say they love him, yet their lives look no different from those who reject him. They chase after wealth, crave recognition, and indulge in fleeting pleasures, all while calling themselves believers. But the chosen are not satisfied with shallow faith. They do not just believe in God, they live for him. The Bible does not suggest holiness, it commands it. Just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy, because I am holy. 1 Peter 1 verse 15 to 16. This is not a mere guideline. It is the very identity of those who belong to God. Holiness is not isolation, it is separation. The world distorts holiness, portrays it as outdated, restrictive, unnecessary. But holiness is not about rejecting life. It is about choosing a higher way to live. Look at the great men of faith, Joseph, Daniel, Abraham. They did not live in caves. They were not outcasts. They were men of power, influence, and wealth, but they were different. What set them apart was not their position, but their purity. They walked among the world without being consumed by it. They stood in the midst of corruption and remained unshaken. This is the difference between those who are truly chosen and those who are merely religious. Joseph chose purity over power. Joseph had everything. He went from being a slave to becoming the most powerful man in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. He had access to wealth, authority, and privilege. But when temptation came, when Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, he ran. Not because he was weak, not because he was afraid, But because he valued holiness more than power, obedience more than pleasure, his calling more than his desires. This is what the chosen do. They do not play with sin. They do not flirt with compromise. They do not test how close they can get to the edge without falling. They flee from anything that threatens their purity, their purpose, their connection with God. And because Joseph refused to trade his holiness for a moment of pleasure, God elevated him to rule a nation. This is what the world does not understand. Holiness does not take away your future, it protects it. The cost of being set apart. But holiness is not without a price. The world chases after excess, indulgence, and selfish gain. The chosen choose restraint, discipline, and devotion. The world lives by feelings, desires, and cravings. The chosen live by conviction, principle, and truth. The world applauds compromise and mocks obedience. But the chosen stand firm even when they stand alone. And because of this, the world will never understand them. They will call you extreme. They will say you are too rigid, too different, too radical. But they said the same about Daniel when he refused to bow to Babylon. They said the same about Moses when he chose slavery with his people over the riches of Egypt. They said the same about John the Baptist when he cried out against sin in the wilderness. Holiness is freedom, not restriction. The world sees holiness as limitation, but the chosen know it is liberation. Holiness is freedom. Freedom from the chains of sin, from the weight of guilt, from the emptiness of temporary pleasure. It is freedom to walk in purpose, to carry divine power, to live without compromise. Holiness does not bind you. It breaks the chains that once held you. What do you pursue? But here's the real question. What is your heart chasing? Because holiness is not just about what you avoid, it is about what you pursue. The chosen do not simply turn away from sin, they run toward righteousness. They do not just resist temptation, they cling to the presence of God. Have you felt the shift? Have you felt the pull away from what once satisfied you? This is God setting you apart. This is Him marking you. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were chosen to stand out. Declare your allegiance now. If this message has stirred something inside you, if you know you were called to live set apart, declare it. Say it aloud. I am chosen. I will not conform. I will walk in holiness. I will live for God, no matter the cost. This is the mark of the chosen. And if you carry this mark, then your life will never look like the world's, because you were never meant to belong to it. A life of powerful prayer, no one is chosen without it. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is the undeniable truth. You cannot walk as one of the chosen without a life of prayer. Not just casual, occasional, or convenient prayers. Not just words spoken in desperation when all else fails. But a life rooted, sustained, and empowered by relentless, unwavering communion with God. Many claim to follow Him, yet their lips are silent, their spirits disconnected, and their faith powerless, because they have not learned the true power of prayer. But the chosen know better. They do not see prayer as a ritual. They do not treat it as a religious duty or a last resort. They breathe it. They live it. They move through life saturated in the presence of God because they refuse to take a single step without Him. The Bible does not suggest prayer. It commands it. Pray without ceasing. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 17. This is not optional. This is not for the weak. This is the mark of those who truly belong to Him. The chosen are people of prayer. Look at the great men and women of Scripture. They were not just people of knowledge. They were not just people of faith. They were people of prayer. Daniel prayed 3 times a day, even when it meant facing death in a lion's den. Elijah prayed, and fire fell from heaven. Hannah prayed, and her barren womb was opened. Jesus Himself, God in the flesh, constantly withdrew to pray. If Jesus needed prayer, how much more do we? The chosen do not survive without it. They do not grow without it. They do not walk in power without it. Prayer is not a transaction, it is a transformation. Many approach prayer like a spiritual ATM, a place to withdraw blessings, success, and breakthroughs when they need them. They come when they want something but ignore the call to relationship. But the chosen see prayer differently. They do not pray to get more from God. They pray to give more to Him. They do not come with a list of demands, but with surrendered hearts. They pray, not to manipulate God's will to fit their desires, but to align themselves with His divine purpose. This is why their prayers carry power. They are not weak, empty words. They are declarations of faith that shake the kingdom of darkness. When the chosen pray, heaven listens. Hell trembles. The atmosphere shifts. Because prayer is not just a conversation, it is a weapon. The greatest prayers are born in the deepest struggles. Many pray only when things are easy, when life is smooth, when success is abundant, when there is no opposition. But the chosen, they pray when everything is falling apart. They pray when there is no money in the bank. They pray when betrayal wounds them. They pray when they have no answers, no strength, no way out. Because they understand, prayer is not just about changing situations, it is about changing them. Look at Job, a man who had it all, wealth, family, health, until in a single moment, everything was stripped away. He lost his riches. He lost his children. His body was covered in sores. His friends accused him. His wife told him to curse God and die. But what did he do? He fell to the ground and worshipped. He cried out, but he did not curse. He questioned, but he did not abandon his faith. And because he remained steadfast in prayer, God restored everything to him and more. This is the difference between the chosen and everyone else. What does your prayer life look like? This is the question you must answer. Is your prayer life consistent, bold, and unshakable? Or is it something you turn to only when you need something? Do you pray with confidence, knowing that God hears you? Or do you hesitate, unsure if your words even matter? Because make no mistake, your prayer life reveals everything about your spiritual life. Without prayer, there is no power. You cannot be chosen without a life of prayer. You cannot walk in authority without a life of prayer. You cannot step into your destiny without a life of prayer. There is no substitute. There is no shortcut. The greatest battles are won in prayer before they are ever won in life. The enemy knows this. That is why he works to keep you distracted, disconnected, and discouraged. Because a silent Christian is a powerless Christian. But the chosen, they refuse to be silent. They refuse to be weak. They refuse to live without the presence of God. They press in. They intercede. They declare. They decree. And because of that, they cannot be shaken. Your call to action. If you are chosen, if you know that you cannot walk in your destiny without a life of prayer, declare it now. Say aloud, I will not be silent. I will not be powerless. I will live in prayer. I will walk in authority. I will not just know God, I will know His voice. This is your call to rise. Make prayer your foundation. Make prayer your weapon. Make prayer your life. Because those who are truly chosen do not just believe in God, they remain in His presence. The fruit of the Spirit, the undeniable mark of the chosen. You cannot fake it. You cannot buy it. You cannot imitate it. There is something that separates the truly chosen from those who merely claim to follow God. It is not the number of scriptures they can recite. It is not their church attendance or the religious language they use. It is something deeper, something living, something that flows from the core of their being. It is the fruit of the Spirit. Jesus made it unmistakably clear. By their fruit you will recognize them. Matthew 7 verse 16. Not by their wealth, not by their influence, not by their social status, by their fruit. Because the truly chosen do not need to prove themselves with words. They do not need to convince others with titles or appearances. Their lives speak louder than their lips. The illusion of the world versus the reality of the chosen. The world teaches that success is measured by power, riches, and recognition. It glorifies those who accumulate wealth, those who dominate others, those who live in luxury. But the Bible does not say, by their possessions you will recognize them. It does not say, by their achievements you will know them. It says, by their fruit. Look at the life of Jesus. He did not come as a mighty king, dressed in gold and seated on a throne of earthly power. He came in humility. He walked in love. He lived in sacrifice. No palace. No riches, no political status. Yet he carried more power than any ruler, more authority than any king. Why? Because he bore the fruit of the Spirit in its purest form. And the chosen, the truly chosen, are the same. Bearing fruit requires surrender. But here's the truth many do not want to hear: bearing fruit is costly. It does not come without a price. It requires surrender. It demands dying to self. Jesus said, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much fruit." John 12 verse 24. Do you see it? There can be no true life without death. No true growth without sacrifice. If you want to bear the fruit of the Spirit, you must be willing to let go of the things that have kept you bound: your pride, your selfish desires, your need for control. The transformation that cannot be faked. When the chosen surrender, something miraculous happens. They begin to love in ways they never thought possible. They find joy even in the midst of suffering. They walk in peace while chaos surrounds them. They become patient, kind, faithful, not because they force themselves to be, but because something inside them has changed. It is no longer about trying to be good. It is about being transformed. Have you ever met someone who radiates the presence of God? Someone who doesn't just talk about faith, but lives it? Who doesn't just speak about love, but embodies it? That is the fruit of the Spirit. It cannot be imitated. It cannot be manufactured. It is the mark of someone who has been truly changed by God. The distinction between the chosen and the counterfeit. But here is the challenge: many claim to follow God, but their lives tell a different story. They speak about love, but harbor bitterness. They preach about peace, but are consumed by fear. They claim faith, but chase after wealth like the world does. The chosen are different. Their transformation is real. Their fruit is evident. Their lives testify to who they belong to. What does your life say about you? So now I ask you, when people look at you, what do they see? Do they see the evidence of God's presence? Do they see love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? Or do they see something else? Because make no mistake, this is the mark of the chosen. Not words, not knowledge, but fruit. And when the fruit of the Spirit is present, there is no denying who you truly belong to. The seal of God, the ultimate mark of the chosen. There is a final, undeniable distinction between those who are truly chosen by God and those who simply claim His name. It is not a title. It is not wealth. It is not status. It is the seal of God. This is not something that can be earned. Not something that can be faked. Not something that can be bought. It is the mark that only God Himself places upon His own, the eternal confirmation that you belong to Him. The Bible declares, "Do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption." Ephesians 4 verse 30. This is not a symbolic idea. This is a spiritual reality. God has always marked His people. From the very beginning, God has set apart those who are His. He has always placed a distinction between the chosen and the world. In the Old Testament, He marked Israel through His covenant, giving them laws that separated them from the nations. In the New Testament, He marked His followers with the Holy Spirit, sealing them as His own. And in the final days, the book of Revelation speaks of a sealing where God's people will be unmistakably separated from the rest of the world. This seal is not for everyone. It is not given to those who merely profess belief. It is reserved for those who walk in obedience, live in faith, and surrender fully to the will of God. The difference between those who are marked and those who are not. Many want the benefits of being chosen. They want the blessings, the favor, the protection. But few are willing to pay the price of true discipleship. Look at Noah. He lived in a time when the entire world had turned to wickedness. The people mocked righteousness. They chased after their own desires. They lived as if God did not exist. Yet Noah was different. While others indulged, he obeyed. While others ignored God, he listened. While others followed the world, he followed the voice of the Almighty. And because of that, God sealed him inside the ark, protecting him from the judgment that came upon the earth. That same God is still at work today. The world is moving further from Him. People are chasing after money, success, and temporary pleasures, thinking these things will bring them security. But in the end, only those who are sealed by God will stand. Only those who truly belong to Him will endure. The final question. Now that you have seen the 7 undeniable marks of the chosen, the question is no longer whether they exist. The question is, do they exist in you? A transformed heart? Have you been changed from the inside out? An unwavering love for truth? Do you seek truth even when it is inconvenient? Perseverance through trials? Do you stand firm when life gets hard? A desire for holiness? Do you choose righteousness over compromise? A life of powerful prayer? Do you live in constant connection with God? The fruit of the Spirit? Does your life reflect the evidence of His presence? The seal of God? Have you fully surrendered to Him? These are not superficial qualities. They cannot be imitated. They are the living proof of a heart completely given to God. So now ask yourself, do these marks define me? If not, then now is the time to change. Because the truth is this, there will come a time when it will be too late to decide. But here is the good news. God is calling you today. He is giving you this moment, right now, to step into your true identity, to walk in the fullness of His calling, to become everything He created you to be. This is your chance. This is your invitation. So now I ask you, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you ignore it and continue living as you have? Or will you surrender, be transformed, and walk as one who is truly chosen? The decision is yours. But choose quickly because the time is short and eternity is at stake.